I will get started. So, my name is Damien Thouvenin. I'm a partner at Goood. Goood, this is Goood. We are a bunch of consultants, and we are defined by two things. We have an expertise in agility, and we have an obsession with waste. We find that in companies there is a tremendous amount of waste, of energy that gets lost in useless meetings, of people who have talent and cannot express their talents because they have so little autonomy and so on, with IT processes that are so fixed that it constrains the company. And this is what we have chosen for a mission, to help the mavericks in the companies that resent this waste and want to change their company to make it more agile, more sustainable. And this expertise and this obsession, they materialize also in the communities that we are involved in. One of those communities is the community of people who work, who step on the cables. This comes back okay. So I'll move away from the cables. This will be maybe better. The community of people who work in CSR, corporate social responsibility, and we are a company very much involved in that movement. But also many agile communities, among which the Lean-Agile Procurement community. And today and tomorrow we are hosting the first lab gathering in France. So why would someone want to invest or to investigate the subject of bringing agility or lean agile thinking to procurement? Well, to me, it goes back to that question. How can we build companies that endure, that last, even when the contexts change, when the markets change, when the laws change? And to have a lasting, enduring company, we could say that we have an alternative between making profitable choices. Okay, always each year choose what's more profitable for our company. But maybe this would be at the expense of our stakeholders. I mean, we would have a very profitable company, but we would have maybe frustrated employees, frustrated suppliers, frustrated clients. Or we could say that to be sustainable, to be durable, we need to make responsible choices to account for our stakeholders, to take care of our employees, to take care of our clients, to take care of our suppliers. But maybe this is at the expense of the company. Why should I give so much to my employees and my customers? Well, I think it's a wrong way to see things, to reason in terms of either or. Is it profitable or responsible? It's actually two dimensions. We can be profitable on one axis, yes or no, and we can be profitable, and responsible, yes or no. So this gives us 4 quadrants. And those 4 quadrants, 2 are quite easy. The easiest one is the stupidity quadrant. If we do something that's not responsible and not profitable, it's easy, we just stop. The other one is the virtue quadrant. It's quite easy. We do something that's responsible and profitable. Where we have problems is in the 2 other quadrants. And if we do something that's profitable but not very much responsible, we have an ethical problem, a dilemma. Should we continue? Should we stop that? And the problem is that most of what we do in our businesses is usually in that quadrant. And the other quadrant, which is not so easy, is the responsible but not profitable. It might be a kind of militancy, or it could be something like compensating our business. And that's also what a lot of companies do. Okay, so we use a lot of energy and then we plant trees to compensate. But I think it's not, the purpose is not to balance those two quadrants. The purpose is to move our activities and to find ways that we do things that are both profitable and responsible, and both responsible and profitable. So the first, and maybe I can illustrate that because it's not quite obvious. A good example of that I find is software eco-design. I don't know if any of you have a vague acquaintance with IT. Yeah, vague? Well, it's the thing that goes into the computer or the phone that you're using. This company, it's a friend of us, a small startup in Nantes. Green Spectre, they do tools that allow software developers to instantly measure the energy consumption of the software as it gets built. So in the software build factory, we run tests and we measure the software energy consumption. And it can start with a militancy approach. And Anthony and Thierry, who founded the company, did start with a militancy approach. They were convinced that there is an absolute necessity for the IT business to become green, because it's 20% of all carbon emissions. It's just as much as planes. Okay? But it can also start with a business approach, because the software that gets hosted in the cloud gets built by cloud providers. And the cloud providers, they bill based on how much energy it costs, because this is the main cost factor of a data center of the cloud. It's the energy of the software. And by improving the energy footprint, sorry. By improving the energy footprint of the software, we make it more responsible, but we also make it more profitable. And what I find very interesting in that example is that to achieve that, usually you will need, when you try to do it, you will need to investigate technology issues, because the software, the part of the software that uses the more resources, that's memory and that's processing time, is usually the part that is less optimal. And to have a better energy footprint, you will have to have a better engineering. And it's usually the result of a software eco-design is not only a cheaper software to operate, a greener software, but it's also a better engineered software and a more efficient software from the user perspective, because the software is more fluid. It uses less memory, it uses less CPU, it works better on your phone, it works better in the cloud. And a very good example of that is what happened at Facebook. Facebook, they kept building data centers all over the world. And those data centers, they cost. This one cost $1 billion. It was their 10th data center. So they started to say, okay, we have our engineers that have an ecological conscience, that are preoccupied with our energy footprint, and we have our business people who are preoccupied with the cost of hosting our services. And by re-engineering their software to remove or to diminish the energy footprint, they have achieved quite outstanding results. Today, the carbon footprint of one typical Facebook user in a year is less than the footprint of a teacup that you boil with the common kettle. Okay, so there is something really interesting in that approach of trying to not contrast or choose between doing something profitable and something responsible, but trying, on the contrary, to do both. That it forces you to innovate, and those innovations usually give out a business breakthrough, which is much more valuable than the cost economy that was intended in the start. So usually I'm told that I'm giving too much information, so one of my colleagues said you should make some summary at some stage. So maybe the first, and I have two keys to share tonight. The first would be stop opposing and start inventing new ways to do both. Okay? And here it was both profitable and both responsible, but I want to investigate another classical opposition, which would be short-term or long-term. The traditional way of thinking strategy in a company would be to build competitive advantage. And competitive advantage in the Middle Ages, that was seizing the heights, finding the hills in the landscape and building a castle. It was still true in the First World War. I mean, my grandfather, he died trying to conquer a hill in Verdun. Okay? And you seize the heights, and then once you hold it, you create a very strong position. And you hold to that position. But when the time comes into action, even the strongest castles end up in ruins. And the purpose of a lasting company is not to have the strongest castle. It is to have a secure place to spend the night every night. And if we have to refine a new height or a new castle every night, then we are very durable. Especially if we are in time of changes and the floor keeps moving, then the very strong castle may not be a very strong position. Okay, and this means, and this gives a quite interesting idea, because very strong in the short term might be very fragile in the long term, because it doesn't resist big earthquakes. On the contrary, very light, agile encampments can move with the changes in the environment. So when we have a stable environment, it makes sense to have a stable position. When we have an unstable environment, we must change our ways of thinking. And profitable, if we can't maintain our position, it doesn't make sense. Responsible, it doesn't make sense if we can't sustain our efforts. And if responsible costs money, we can't maintain it in the long run. So the only sustainable view in the long term is to be both profitable and both responsible. And I have well, this is Toy Story, I think you know. And I think Toy Story is a very good example of what I just said about finding new campments every night. Because Pixar was created as a fork from LucasArts Studios. And when Pixar had its first movie hit, which was Toy Story, they could have done like LucasArts did, drain the product until it's dead and go for Star Wars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and do maybe Toy Story 10 and 12. But what made the success of Pixar up until such a success that they took over Disney was not Toy Story. It was Toy Story and Searching for Nemo and the Indestructibles and so on and so on. It's not the product that made their success. It's their renewed capability to create a great product year after year. A new product each time. And this would be the second key that I would want to share. If we want to be sustainable in a moving world, the real product is not what we have built. The real asset is not the position we have taken. It's the team or the organization that we have that is able to create new positions year after year. And why you might wonder why I'm explaining this and where I'm going with procurement. Well, the team does not show in what is usually accounted. When you take your financial accounts at the end of the year, when you take your P&L, you see your products, your stocks, your sales, but what is the real asset comes as costs, the team. So there's a shift in the way we look at the companies, which is moving from traditional assets to more intangible assets. And intangible assets, you have the team, yes, but you also have the way the company manages its information, the way the reputation or the brand it has, the way it is organized to work and to deliver, the partners and the suppliers it can mobilize on a new issue, the social relationships with the city and the partners, the technology, the clients, the environment that it works in and that may attract better teams or that may provide resources, and also the shareholders that may be more or less patient to finance a strategic shift or to finance a long-term view. And this is where LAP comes in. And the purpose, my purpose tonight was to introduce this Lean Agile Procurement, from which you still know nothing, so I'm preserving the suspense. But to give a kind of perspective, to build a sustainable development or a sustainable company, we need to shift from traditional assets and short-term economic view to a long-term intangible assets and start caring for our teams, in our information systems, our organization, our technology, our clients, our suppliers. And this will be both responsible to the balanced benefit of both the company and the stakeholders, and both profitable. And I put the picture of this book because if you start going in that direction, you will need some credentials to support your view. In France, we have a chance that at the epoch of Christine Lagarde, the Bercy ministry started a work which gave this book, Valoriser le capital immatériel, that provides a methodology. It's a quite simple methodology for giving a financial value to those investments. And if you want to discuss the opportunity of improving your suppliers relationship or your clients relationships against making short-term profits, you will need to be able to measure the long-term value that it provides. Okay, and that would be my conclusion. We have seen with the eco-design that it is possible and very interesting to not oppose long-term and short-term and not oppose profitability and responsibility, but to combine them. But this needs to rethink or reinvent the way we do the things. And this morning we had a discussion about LAP with our community of early pioneers, and someone said that we need to break all the rules, but we need to stay safe. That would be my conclusion. Don't break the law, stay safe, stay in the regulated world, but break all the rules and reinvent the way you do business, and especially reinvent the way you work with your suppliers, the way you source, the way you procure your services. That's exactly what Air France did, and I will ask maybe first Jacques and Frédéric. Sorry, Eric and Frédéric.